think it's easy to underestimate just what it takes. But I'm coming back to you, Mr. Ogunsoya, because I think it's easy to believe sometimes that it's just sort of free money you throw at infrastructure projects. But what is it that you would typically seek to ensure that these projects are viable, and maybe other states can learn one or two things, or how Lagos is structuring these projects that make it attractive to a long-term infrastructure investor like NSI?
Thank you. At NSI, we don't want to be an operating investor. We're never an operator. But what I call the marquee investor, we just put a stamp of approval on any investment. It's a signature of the sovereign. We're not going to operate the asset. We're not going to be of Abuja. So we're a friend of everyone. Yeah. But Lagos, of course, is a special friend of NSI.
Yeah, thank you. And I think those projects and that pipeline deserve a round of applause. I think it's easy to underestimate just what it takes. But I'm coming back to you, Mr. Ogunsoya, because I think it's easy to believe sometimes that it's just sort of free money you throw at infrastructure projects. But what is it that you would typically seek to ensure that these projects are viable, and maybe other states can learn one or two things, for how Lagos is structuring these projects that make it attractive to a long-term infrastructure investor like NSI?
Thank you. At NSI, we don't want to be an operating investor. We're never an operator. But what I call a marquee investor, we just put a stamp of approval on any investment. It's a signature of the sovereign. We're not going to operate the asset. We're not going to be the majority shareholder. But when you put a stamp of sovereignty on any investment, it de-risks the project significantly. That's one thing we do. Number two, we don't seek to be the majority shareholder. Typically, we don't take more than 25% of any investment. You must figure out to fund the balance. Number three, we like to see co-investors. When I say co-investors, we want like-minded co-investors, typically DFIs, pension fund, or other investors who share our own ideas of transparency. We like to see that. We also want to be sure that the project is actually sustainable. How do we talk about sustainability? If you're constructing a road, we want to see how the road is going to be paid for. Whether there's a toll that is going to be paid for by the users, or government is going to make, somebody has to pay for something. Nothing is free in life. Either the drivers are paying you a toll to use the road, or the government is making an allocation to defray the cost of the infrastructure. If you're supporting a seaport or an airport, there should be fares that would return sufficient returns to those who are putting the money down. And finally, we're not a perpetual investor. We're not going to be in any investment forever. We want to see an exit strategy. How do we exit the investment so that we can use that money for other stuff? Which is why it's also important to have a very, very deep capital market where we can go, sell the investment, or we can find other investors who are coming to take it up. But that is very, very important for us. And a very small issue which I like to mention is about the currency issue. Remember, this fund is meant to preserve the wealth of the country and also to increase the wealth of our country. So we don't like where the value is being diluted, which is why we tend to ensure that the projects we finance, they are de-risked by probably having a dollar-linked return, or the Naira pricing is sufficiently flexible to accommodate swings in macro indices to make sure we preserve the value of the investment. So all these things are very important in order to make sure your wealth, my wealth, is preserved for your children, my children, for generations unborn.
Fantastic. Thank you for giving us that picture of what it takes to structure these bankable projects. Now, speaking of wealth, Professor Aboyomi, we often say health is wealth. But one of the things I think that also makes for a sustainable city is culture. And what I mean by culture, in the philosophical sense, how people interact with the infrastructure that is built, or the lifestyles people pursue in a mega city like Lagos. For instance, biomass, wood fuel burning, which contributes to health challenges as opposed to switching to clean cooking. How is the Ministry of Health in Lagos State ensuring that the infrastructure being created and developed around health actually aligns with the way people are using and interacting with those pieces of infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's actually a really, really important question. And when Mr. Governor gave us the mandate to develop the blueprint for medical infrastructure transformation, one of the key pillars on which we built that blueprint was apart from renewable energy and patient and staff flow, we looked at the cultural behavior of our citizens. For example, if you go to a hospital in England, they'll tell you there's visiting hours between 5 and 7, and then one person comes and you sit by the bed. In Africa, you have a relative on admission, the whole village is outside. There are people there from morning to night, So in our facilities, we have to take certain cultural attributes into consideration. Is there enough space for the family? The family actually come. Sometimes they cook outside or they cook nearby. They need somewhere to sleep because they're not just going to leave their relative sitting in a medical facility. So the cultures are different. And we've designed our blueprint to accommodate the nuances of how citizens relate with their relatives when their relatives are in or on admission in hospitals. So the new hospitals that we're rolling out at International Airport, and so we're already embedded in there, and even for this conference, many of you will start receiving WhatsApp and email messages asking about your welfare, where did you travel from, and so on and so forth. It's all part of the BioShield. We're very, very particular. We know everybody that's coming in from Eastern and Central Africa at this point in time.
Yeah.
Whether you're coming by air, by road, we're all networked with our epidemiologists around the states. We're in touch with the airlines. We have the advanced passenger information sheet. So we know where everybody is coming from and we know what your business is as best as we can. And so that BioShield is to try and protect the inflow of a very dangerous pathogen. Should it come in, then we have a very, very elaborate network of contact tracing as well as the isolation centers and our very advanced biosafety laboratory.
Fantastic. Good to know Lagos is building that resilience and well prepared. So I'm going to maybe start from the end there, Mr. Clinton, and as we start to wrap up, a final set of questions for the remaining panelists. Imagining a future of Lagos, you have, today, many of you know we have taxis, we have Uber, you have your personal vehicles, you have your corporate buses, we have rail transportation, the various lines, we have transport by helipad, we have waterways. Where is the scope really for the EVs? From an affordability perspective, because part of having a sustainable city is access for commuters, and access is affordability. How do you see that working out in the future and coexisting alongside all these other modes of transportation? Very briefly.
Okay, the way I'll put it is that for you to get the best benefit on EVs is on a mass transit or commercial basis. The private luxury vehicle transits the owner to work and back. So the emission on the traditional vehicle is not much. But the mass transit, the buses, the tricycles, the motorcycles for logistics, the ferries, that's the scope that you start at, and that has the largest impact on the city of the future, because it's the bottom of the pyramid and you move a larger volume of the population at that level, you make the largest saving on carbon emissions and you gain the best on fuel switch from fossil fuel to electric.
So EVs, mass market, not sort of a middle class private
mass transit is where you get the biggest impact.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for that. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Valentine Obi, from a payments and digital infrastructure perspective. What is the one regulatory or policy catalyst you think we should be introducing now into the payments infrastructure, digital infrastructure landscape in Lagos that will prepare and position it for the future?
Well, I think the first is, I think the central bank already has the right regulatory framework for such, solutions. Definitely, cash is expensive, and if we ensure that almost all government services are paid digitally, that will be enormous. One, it will save the government cost, it reduces fraud, it reduces corruption, and it helps with a lot of reconciliation that they will have to do. And facilities, I think that will be enormous, and that will indeed increase even the revenue for the government. That's my...
Thank you very much. So Vivek, Tolaram, we know about your achievements, and the question is, what next? Your project is concentrated in what we call the Eastern Corridor of Lagos as a megacity. What is the scope and potential to replicate that for the future? Have you looked at other parts of the city, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, as a business, we've been in Nigeria for 50 years, and we manufacture products all over the country, Lagos being the largest investment that we have across our many factories. And for the group going forward, we'll continue to invest in the country, in industrialization locally. I think what's really important and what we see as the future is that we move away from being an import-based country. We need to facilitate manufacturing, job creation, an ecosystem and an economic platform that can continue to grow and support the increase in population and the size of the city as it evolves. When it comes to the free zone, our ambition is to make Lekki Deep Sea Port the largest deep sea port in all of Africa, so that we can continue to import and, continue to export all of the great products that we had. You know, Doctor was talking about the cocoa exports. You need the right infrastructure in place to be able to process cocoa and then get the value addition before you export. So from Tolaram's perspective as a business, it's continuing to drive that and continuing to develop a zone where we can invite multiple businesses to use Nigeria as its manufacturing base, not just for Nigeria itself, but all of West Africa.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vivek. So, Mr. Ogunsoya, I'll give you the final words. You know, one of the things that Vivek talked about in his first submission was the importance of public-private sector partnership. NSI has been working with Lagos State for a very long time. Is there a new model for that partnership going into the future that you would perhaps like to see, especially as the demands for infrastructure digitization continue to increase in Lagos?
I would like to see a deeper level of local capital formation. I've seen a lot of emphasis on DFIs, on the money coming from outside the country. But if you look deeply, we need to find ways of financing local capital. Capital from pension funds, capital from insurance companies, capital from banks. I believe there is enough quantum of long-term funding that we can use to support the PP framework. A couple of days ago, we just got some confirmation from IFC. They're going to be part of a $1 billion fund that we're anchoring. This $1 billion fund is to provide some sort of guarantee for infra investment. We know infra investment are very long term, huge capital required. In order to de-risk this, we're setting up a $1 billion fund that is anchored by us, World Bank, IFC just came in again. And this funding is meant to cover 4 different areas of any infra investment: the project preparation phase, the development phase, the guarantee, those who want the guarantee, and also to provide the risk capital itself. These are areas where I reckon that Lagos State government and other interests can benefit from. And our screening is very deep. It's just meant to make sure that the money, when it leaves, it comes back in the right format again. So, but I must commend the Lagos State government, the governor, the deputy governor, on the very excellent partnership between us and them. I've listed a number of projects. We just did another power station about a couple of days ago. The very power station is also being supported by the NSIA. I'm sure other states are jealous, but we just love the fact that Lagos State government has been a viable partner of NSIA, and we continue to do whatever we can to raise the standard of living. On the last note, I'd just like to say, as we look at the city of the future, there's one thing that we need to look out for. We should make this a very affordable city, and also a very inclusive city. We shouldn't build a city of prosperous, islands surrounded by poverty-stricken community. How do we make sure that the growth that we're talking about is inclusive and becomes affordable to a large number of people that live in Lagos State? That's my last thing.
And I really think that's such a brilliant note to end on. When I sum up the discussion today, there's 3 words that come to mind. First is sustainability, which someone once described as building and meeting the needs of today without jeopardizing the needs of future generations. The second part of it is around viability, the fact that everything comes at a financial cost and projects needs to be bankable. But most importantly, I think the last one, which resonates what Mr. Ogunsoya said, is related to a phrase I once heard, and many of you would have heard it, that the sign of a country or a city that's wealthy is not when the poor switch to private cars, but it's when the wealthy start to use mass transit. And I think that speaks to me of access and democratization. And I think what we've really heard here today is the need for an integrated approach to building our city of the future. Thank you very much, and many thanks to Professor Abayomi, Mr. Ogunsoya, Vivek Aswani, Dr. Valentine Obi, and of course, the EV guy, Mr. James Oludele Clinton. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you, our wonderful moderator, for steering the conversation. I'd like to quickly invite Mr. Governor, Mr. Deputy Governor, and the co-chairs to please join for a quick picture after this panel. That was a very progressive conversation, don't you think?
Yes, Rolake, you're my favorite moderator ever. That was fascinating. Absolutely
very well done.
Fascinating.
Well done, Rolake. We told you yesterday that day 2 would even be better, more insightful, and you can already tell from the conversations we've had. Thank you very much. Well done to our moderator, Rolake Akekugbe-Filani, and our exceptional panelists. A round of applause for them as they exit the stage. Thank you so much. And imagine today we have Mr. Governor and Mr. Deputy Governor, both of them present for Invest Lagos 3.0.
Lagos is not blessed with mineral wealth. We don't have oil, we don't have diamonds or gold, but we have people. And the new economy is the knowledge economy.
When a Nigerian travels abroad for oncology, or for cardiac care, or just for their annual checkup, the payment for the procedure, the flights, the accommodation, and the months of support all flow into another country's economy.
Simple comparator is cocoa and chocolate. So we grow the cocoa in Nigeria, we harvest it, we bag it, and we ship it out. And then we import exotic chocolates and beverages back to Nigeria at humongous cost to us. So if we apply this same principle to medical science, or any science for that matter, the raw material is here with us in Nigeria. The minds to translate that raw material into knowledge and discovery are here. 20, 30 years ago, we were the great consumers of international, global culture and music. Every piece of music that we listened to was imported into Nigeria, until we made a deliberate effort to stimulate our own industry around culture and creativity. And now, Lagos, Nigeria, is a global phenomenon around Afrobeats, around culture, around creativity. So there's no difference, whether it's in the arts and culture, whether it's in engineering, architecture, in health, we can do the same thing.
What is structurally different about LASMISO is that the foundations exist before the announcement. The Lagos State Biobank is operational. The Smart Health Information Platform is deployed. The Infectious Disease Research Institute has broken ground. The Free Zone and Deep Sea Port are functioning. There is a 25-year concession and a feasibility study on the way to ground every decision in evidence. We are building on solid ground that already exists. That is the structural difference.
The Lekki Corridor succeeds because its operators complement one another. Lagos Free Zone provides world-class industrial infrastructure and port access, while other developments along the axis contribute additional industrial capacity, logistics, and scale. Together, they create an integral ecosystem where businesses can seamlessly import raw materials. Together, they create an integral ecosystem where businesses can seamlessly import raw materials, access talents and services, and export finished products through a connected network. Lekki Worldwide Investment Limited coordinates this relationship to ensure the corridor functions as one powerful ecosystem rather than isolated developments.
LASMISO is fundamentally investable. The fundamentals are strong. There's significant unmet healthcare demand in Nigeria and in Lagos. There's heavy dependence on pharmaceutical import-free zone and clear government backing through a long-term concession framework. The opportunity is real. In my opinion, the most undervalued asset is the data infrastructure. Lagos generates millions of patient interactions annually, supported by primary healthcare centers, a growing biobank, and integrated health information systems. That ecosystem creates long-term advantages in research, clinical trials, drug development, and biotech innovation.
We're moving out of the era of minerals and fossil fuel. It's all around intelligence.
You know, if you're wise for Lagos, you know, if you're wise for anywhere.
LASMISO is a whole network of information feeding into a central location. So there are going to be several LASMISO hubs all over Lagos feeding wells to be purified and converted into products that's useful. And so LASMISO is just the refinery and the produce of knowledge and benefit to society is what comes out of the refinery. And that has tremendous economic value. But it all comes from the society. It comes from our institutions. It comes from our doctors, our healthcare professionals. It comes from our academics. It comes from inquiring
Ladies and
minds
gentlemen, please take your seats so the program can begin. Take your seats, please. This includes the gentlemen of the press as well.
Operational, with the plants running, the labs leads.
Please take your seats. Please listen to me. I'm the moderator. I'm your traffic warden. You have to listen to Mark Edo as I say, please take your seats. Please take your seats.
So seeing it function will be the proof that the support mattered.
Never before have two ministries ever come together. And this project has been in the offing for over 6 years within healthcare. And I'm delighted that under my leadership and under Mr. Governor's leadership, it will mean a great deal to see LASMISO fully realized. To stand one day, delighted that under my leadership and under Mr. Governor's leadership, it will mean a great deal to see LASMISO fully realized. It's made here in Lagos, Nigeria.
LASMISO will be born in Lagos. Lagos is the center of excellence. This is Lagos, Eko and Ibaje. The starting block of human capital is good health. And we promise you that we will play our part in ensuring that Lagos has the human capital that it requires to be nationally, regionally, continentally, and internationally competitive for a better Lagos. Thank you very much.
Growth in Lagos at scale, what we dream of, what we hope you, our brothers from across the globe, will invest in, it depends on domestic policy, it depends on domestic partnerships, but it also depends on the quality of international partnerships. And that's what we're going to be talking about in Plenary 5, which has actually 3 parts to it. It's called the Global Partnership for Growth Plenary Session, or segment, should I say. And the first one's a big one. Now, the Commonwealth is 56 countries, 2.7 billion souls. AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, the biggest free trade area in the world, the hopes and aspirations of 1.4 billion Africans with a combined wealth. And the AFCFTA, you have a lot of people, you have a lot of GDP, and you have a lot of countries. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing right now when we talk about global partnerships for growth. So this is what I call in-conversation conversation. There's no moderator, because they don't need one, because they are sort of 2 sides of the same coin. And I want you to give them a warm round of applause for a conversation as they come to the stage. Please welcome Ms. Samantha Cohen, the Chief Executive Officer of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council. Followed by the hardest working man, I always call him at the AFCFTA. He is the Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat. Please welcome His Excellency Wamkele Mene. Do you have your mics? Can we get them some mics? Oh, they have mics. Ah, you came prepared. The floor is yours. Go for it.
Working so hard these last couple of days. Everybody wants to talk to you. So I think you're obviously doing something right. But it's really a very crucial time in the AFCFTA. And I think we're at a crossroads because of geopolitical shifts and the way the world is changing so rapidly. And I'd just like to hear from you what you think, where are you in the implementation journey, and what are the critical priorities of your next phase?
Well, thank you very much. And again, let me thank my senior brother, His Excellency, the Governor, for inviting me. And it's been a very, very intense day and a half. We started this journey, as you know, in 2020. That is when the Assembly of Heads of States and Government decided that we have to accelerate market integration in Africa. 55 economies, fragmented, 42 currencies, inability of people to move easily across borders, all of these things contributing to a very, very constrained intra-Africa growth pattern. And since then, I'm happy to report, as I said yesterday, there are now 50 countries in Africa that are implementing the AFCFTA. We have we've concluded all of the protocols, what we refer to as the protocols, which are really the sub-agreements that constitute the main trade agreement. That work has been concluded. And we are seeing records amounts of intra-Africa trade. This year, we project intra-Africa trade will be at $230 billion. Last year, it was at $220 billion. So we are making progress, but we have to move faster because, as you said, the global economy and the global context is adverse. Many countries have been kicked out of AGOA. Many African countries have lost market share in the US market through AGOA. Many African countries are not able to access the European Union markets. So we have to build a domestic market as the African continent, and it's here in Africa. And the crisis that you are mentioning, actually from the very beginning of this journey, we have been, as Africans here, we have been subjected to externalities that have had a very adverse impact on intra-Africa trade because of our dependence on external markets. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, fragmenting supply chains, as we all know, and we were at the back of the queue for vaccines, germ-killing products, and other therapeutics. The Russia-Ukraine context, which also caused inflationary pressures on many, many African countries and pushing millions of people back into poverty because of the over-reliance on the imports of grains from Russia, Ukraine. Now the war in Iran. Similarly, inflationary pressures. So for us to be able to navigate any crisis or future crisis, we've got to build a domestic market. And by domestic market, I mean the 50 countries that have ratified the agreement establishing the AFCFTA.
Yes, and I think you've outlined all the external factors that you've had no control over that have really had an adverse impact. But in terms of what you can control, where are the bottlenecks? And domestically, is it visa-free access? Is it the cost of airline travel, for example, or air routes or freight routes and the administrative burden of freight crossing borders? Where do you see the domestic bottlenecks that can be unlocked quickly with willing?
And that is really a critical challenge, is overcoming the constraints. You've mentioned some of them. The cost of trade finance continues to be very high. So small, medium enterprises cannot afford trade finance that would enable them to scale and to expand and reach new markets out of ECOWAS into the East African community, for example. So we have to work with our development finance institutions to see what mitigation steps can be taken so that our commercial banks can enable affordable onward lending. The second constraint is infrastructure, transport, logistics. The infrastructure, transport, and logistics continues to be very, very high. Intra-Africa travel is very, very expensive relative to other parts of the world. And so we have to work within the African Union and with individual governments to find ways of reducing the cost of travel. And by the way, the cost is attributable mainly to each country wanting to impose taxes on the cost per seat. So it's a government policy issue that we have to address. Even the movement of cargo is very, very difficult. From Lagos to Abidjan is 1,080 kilometers, but a distance of 1,080 kilometers with 37 checkpoints along the way. So we've got constraints that we can deal with relatively quickly. Then you mentioned a free movement of persons. This is a very, very important area, because if business people and the business people in the room here are not able to move relatively easy around the continent for the purposes of business, then we will be constraining intra-Africa trade. We know the experience of the European Union when the European Union relaxed movement of persons. I'm not even talking about movement of labor. I'm just talking about temporary movement of persons for business meetings. We saw the exponential growth in intra-EU trade. So we have to accelerate intra-Africa movement of persons. And in this regard, Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, recently Togo, Rwanda, Kenya are some of the countries, and Congo-Brazzaville are some of the countries that have announced visa-free for all Africans on arrival. And that's exactly the direction that we have to move in and accelerate movement of persons. And let me, whilst we are talking about movement of persons, let me also address something which is very, very important. And that is that when business people are moving, a business person is not looking to stay in country X indefinitely. They are looking to conduct business and then leave. So we are working with our leaders, our heads of states at the highest level to address this issue. We're also working with the private sector to address this issue, to make sure that as many countries as possible, at the very least, enable visa on arrival. So these are some of the constraints. The point you make is absolutely correct. They are all within our reach as a continent.
Yes, and I was recently in Togo, and I was there for business reasons, and when I arrived, they issued me with an investor passport, which, you know, was a fast track to all of the opportunities for business people visiting on a short-term basis. And I think, you know, that is something that is a very good model that can be followed. But I think prioritizing business access, as you say, is a very good idea as well. But I want to turn now to two subjects, digitization and manufacturing. Now, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about you know, creating more manufacturing on the continent, because obviously that produces a much better trade environment, because you're adding value before things are moving offshore. How are you increasing the opportunity for manufacturing in the continent? And secondly, how is digitization helping? I mean, just to mention, one of the sponsors here this week is Aradex, and we work very closely with them. They are a 3D advanced manufacturing company. And I always say to them, you are the AFCFTA in action, because you can produce in 3 days spare parts for machinery that previously companies would have to fly parts from Germany or the US, and there would be downtime costs for a week or 2 weeks. So I think that is digitization and manufacturing combined. But those two things surely are transformative. I'd love to hear your views on that.
We are seeing increasingly our private sector taking advantage of Africa's digital economy. Fintechs, I mean, here in Lagos, this is a city that has the leading fintech industry and investments of fintech on the continent. We're seeing increasingly innovation in digital payments, increasingly innovation in business connectivity that is digital. And all of these interventions are absolutely critical, because we know that by 2035, Africa's digital economy is estimated to be at $712 billion by 2035. Now, for us to get to that point of that projection, we have to put in place the appropriate regulatory environment. Whether it is doing the things that Governor was mentioning yesterday, and that is enabling data centers to be established across country or across indeed the continent, so that these data centers continue to power Africa's industrial development. This is a very, very strong focus for us, Africa's digital economy, and the infrastructure that is required to ensure the digital public infrastructure that's required to ensure that we reap the benefits of Africa's digital economy. And what really for us is important is the inclusion element of Africa's digital economy. We know farmers in Kenya that use digital tools to assess whether they should access a market today or tomorrow. Smallholder farmers, thousands and thousands of young people across our continent are at the cutting edge of digital innovation. And so these are very important segments of our society that are embedded in Africa's digital economy, and we have to encourage that. And finally, I would just say on the digital economy, the payments infrastructure that we have to set up on our continent is absolutely critical. Because if you and I'm sitting in Kenya, and you are a counterparty in Lagos, what has the United States dollar got to do with both of us trading? So we've got to enable payments in local currency. If you are in Nigeria, your counterparty is in Kenya, you trade in the Naira, they receive the Kenyan shilling and vice versa. And we have achieved this. To an extent, we have achieved this working with my senior brother, Professor Orama, when he was president of the bank. We supported the establishment of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which enables a payments infrastructure in Africa that has all of the sovereignty elements that we would want to see. So as we speak today, you are able to make an intra-Africa trade transfer on the back of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System without using the dollar. Now, the second component of your question is equally interesting because manufacturing continues to be the backbone and the potential for Africa's transformative initiative. As I mentioned yesterday, this city is well endowed. The largest number of industrialists in Africa are here. And these are people who continue to power Africa's industrial transformation. So at a policy level, continentally, we have to make sure that they are able to move their goods from Lagos to Egypt or from Lagos to Malawi with the least hindrances, whether we are talking about custom systems, harmonization, or whether we are talking about trade facilitation measures. We have to make sure that Africa's manufacturers continue to have access to the entire continent. We also have to make sure that they have access to capital to continue to invest in Africa's industrial development. Africa 50, Africa Finance Corporation, AFDB, Afrexim Bank, these are some of the institutions that have the balance sheet and have it to deploy it for industrial development of our continent. So I think these two components combined, digitization of Africa's economy on the back of a rapidly industrializing continent, this is exactly the kind of acceleration that we want to see.
Yes, I think that's really encouraging to hear that. And I had a very interesting meeting this morning with PZ Cousins, one of the oldest manufacturing companies on the continent and deeply embedded here in Nigeria. And it's also about, maintaining that manufacturing backbone and making sure that the conditions are right for them to thrive, because it's also about job creation, which I think manufacturing provides. I'd just like to turn now to the wider Commonwealth. So you are very focused, of course, on unlocking the potential domestically of the continent and creating this fantastic free trade zone. So what would you say to other Commonwealth countries, India, the other big trading nations? What would you say to them about doing business with Africa?
Well, this is one of the SG's, Madam SG of the Commonwealth. One of her priorities since she took over has been to put more emphasis on trade and investment within the Commonwealth. Of course, it is historically a political forum, but she has done a really good job to position the Commonwealth to focus on trade and investment. And in the AFCFTA, there is an opportunity. The AFCFTA is a platform for the Commonwealth to pursue that objective. We have a rapidly changing global context where trade and investment partnerships, the traditional trade and investment partnerships, are no longer there. The reliability aspect of those trade and investment partnerships is not there anymore. I think if you talk to the EU vis-a-vis the US and the trading relations and investment relations, the European Union is rapidly realizing that those partnerships don't count anymore. So similarly, we have to take account of what is happening around the world. Where are the opportunities within the Commonwealth context? Where are opportunities for investment? Where are opportunities for the digital economy? You mentioned India, a very competitive country in digitization, whether we are talking about digitization of identities, the entire population, or indeed digitization of payments. So I think there are opportunities within the Commonwealth. We have to be very deliberate about identifying those opportunities. First, so market access. Second, we have to be very deliberate about identifying the investment and the financing that will be required to unlock those opportunities. And so here on our continent, there's an abundance of opportunity for investors from other Commonwealth countries. Whether we are talking about the Pension Fund of Australia, looking to invest in green technology in Africa, to power our green trade and green industrialization, we have to take these very, very deliberate steps to unlock the trade and investment opportunities within the Commonwealth. We have the capability, we have the population, the combined GDP, whether we're talking about consumer spending on business spending, the capability is there. What we require now is a strategy to unlock these opportunities.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's also about sharing the knowledge, because I think I spend time in Australia, and that is a country that has been affected by the geopolitical shifts and is looking to diversify away from Asia as being its dominant market. And there is increasing interest in Africa, but they don't really know how to do business in Africa because they really haven't traded here before. It's the same with Canada. 80% of Canada's trade has come from the US, and suddenly they are required to look elsewhere. And Canadian businesses have been approaching us to say, we would like to do business with Africa, but we don't really know where to start. We don't know how. And I think that's where you are in such a strong position, and all the work you're doing is going to bear fruit, because there is a great opportunity at this time. You know, where there is crisis, there is opportunity. And I think also making sure that these markets that are new to trading in Africa are aware of the opportunity, and to make sure that it's easy for them to do business and to enter the markets is really important as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, the conversations we are having with, mentioned some of the countries, private sector in Australia, in Canada, and so on, there is, of course, this perception of risk and the risk premium, which we have to explain the reality of our continent, that the risk premium, the price of the risk is not relative to the real risk, and that it is determined in a way that doesn't take account of reality. But we have to confront that challenge. The second aspect of this is we have the advantage of, if we want to de-risk investment or de-risk market access into Africa by an Australian pension fund or a Canadian private equity firm, we have our own development finance institutions that are willing to partner to de-risk, because they know the market very, very well. And they are already in the market. In fact, many of our development finance institutions, such as Afrexim Bank, Africa Finance Corporation, and so on. So these are opportunities within the Commonwealth for private sector within the Commonwealth to leverage on existing capital in Africa for further expansion and to further unlock opportunities.
Exactly. And as our chairman, Lord Marland, said yesterday, there's a 21% advantage of intra-Commonwealth trade because of the trust and the existing relationships and partnerships already that can be leveraged and elevated in order to create new opportunities and to expand. And I think that's what we're all very committed to doing. And just in closing, what does the future look like? If we project forward to 2050, what would you like to see?
Well, I think we are on track as a continent to double intra-Africa trade by 2050. We are on track to create a globally competitive economy that is collectively the African continent, provided we implement what we agreed to do, provided we agree to implement measures that will unlock private sector investment collectively as a continent, not individual countries. We invest in our infrastructure. We invest in transport and logistics. We invest in trade finance. I believe we are well poised to unlock the great potential that our continent has. And I have the honor to travel the length and breadth of our continent. And so I'm able to see the opportunities that we have. But it will take a great deal of effort for us to unlock these opportunities that are in abundance. And by 2050, we should no longer be talking about we have the potential. We should have unlocked the potential by 2050. Yes.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great pleasure.
Your Excellency, thank you. I'd like to invite on stage the governor, the deputy governor, the conference co-chairs, and the conference chair. Thank you very much. The co-chairs of the LOC, and Mr. Iboje Aigimokwede, please join for a quick photograph. Thank you very much. That was indeed rich. Please give them another round of applause for that insightful, very rich conversation speaking on building global partnerships for growth. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. As they exit the stage, may I ask that we give them another round of applause. Thank you so much, Ms. Samantha Cohen, for moderating that conversation. And thank you, Your Excellency, Wamkele Mene, for the rich insights you have provided today as we now prepare for the next conversation, which I say the foundation has already been laid. So let's talk about the previous plenary. That plenary set a foundation asking us what we have been building. This next conversation is asking us another question. How do we build, and who will build with us? We already heard this over and again, and I'm stating that Africa cannot build alone. And it's not just because our capital is insufficient. It's because the weight of what this continent is attempting to build definitely demands global partnership and the full weight of global partnership. To help us interrogate that further, I have the honor of inviting on stage a communications professional who has spent over a decade and a half working in media and government relations and external communications. Please make welcome on stage Mr. Zaki Cooper. A round of applause for him. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We will take another session before that plenary that I just introduced. But the interesting part is Mr. Zaki Cooper here will also be moderating that session. I'd like to invite on stage his guest as we prepare for a truly insightful conversation. Please make welcome on stage the British Deputy High Commissioner. Please celebrate Mr. Johnny Baxter as he joins Mr. Zaki Cooper on stage. Thank you very much. Also joining them is the chairman of the conference and the chairman of the Lagos International Financial Center. Please make welcome Mr. Iboje Aigimokwede, CFR. Thank you very much. Mr. Zaki Cooper, you have the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be with you again. Good afternoon. And conscious we have, great collection of people in the room. We've got entrepreneurs, business leaders, deal makers, the doers, the people who are going to make things happen. And I think really the key numbers for you to keep in mind are 3, 2, 1, okay? Because we're at Lagos 3.0. This is day 2. And the 1 is because there's only one reason we're all here to grow the Lagos economy and to make deals happen. And I'm delighted to be joined by our 2 eminent panelists this afternoon. And if I could go to you first, Mr. Iboje, you're the co-chair of Lagos International Financial Centre, and indeed the chair of this summit. So first thing to say is thank you and well done on what you've achieved with this summit. Yeah, round of applause, absolutely. I guess the question I wanted to ask you is, the Lagos International Financial Centre positions Lagos as a financial hub. What structural reforms are necessary to aid and support global investors?
Thank you. So congratulations, Lagos. And of course, the larger Commonwealth. It's truly a great thing when the public and private sector come together to create an ecosystem for investments, because that is the basis of growth, that is the basis of wealth creation, and that is the basis of prosperity. For me, as a Nigerian and an African, there are three things that I kind of look towards to make things happen. One is the capacity. Another, of course, is the commitment. And the third is what I would call serendipity or luck. And I look for these three things to be present when I engage or involve myself in anything. When I think about Lagos, Lagos has capacity. Lagos has commitment, certainly of the public sector and the private sector. And Lagos has a lot of serendipity and good luck going for it at this moment in time. And I'll tell you why. The governor of Lagos is a market man, the financial markets professional, and a man who lives by the credo of my word is my bond. His deputy is an investment man, a man who has spent his life in the private sector and the public sector driving real investments, tangible and concrete investments, and making things happen. Their cabinet is full of technocrats, many of whom I know, accomplished and with proven track records of getting things done. And they are surrounded by a private sector reality that comprises, in Lagos, the best of Nigeria, the best of Africa, as some speakers have even said from this very stage. And so this conference, I think, showcases the potential of Lagos as an investment destination. And what we are trying to do with the LIFC is to create a system that assures you that when you invest, the things you need to convert your investment into good returns are very much present. Take note of something. The investor has to bring wisdom to the table beyond their money. Lagos State is Lagos State is fertile ground, but you, the investor, has to determine what seeds you want to plant. You, the investor, have to have the ability to nurture within this great fertile ground what it is you seek to generate a return. Great fertile ground, what it is you seek to generate a return from. So we also will be ensuring that the investors into Lagos are the investors that Lagos...
And just like you're the co-chair of the Financial Centre, this is a sort of summit with a global outlook, if I can put it like that. Just give us an idea of how the Financial Centre is doing on a sort of pan-African but also a global scale.
So, well, first of all, many people have asked the question, why Lagos? Okay? And if you think about the fact that Lagos accounts for 1/3 of the economic output of one of Africa's largest economies, okay? Lagos has, I think, second to South Africa, Johannesburg and Cape Town. Probably the next most sophisticated financial markets you have in Africa. And then, of course, I've spoken about the talent. So there is an immediacy. Lagos is ready. Lagos is not being prepared. Lagos is ready for international investment. I would argue that Lagos has been ready for 10 years. What the LIFC does is that it kind of puts the crown on Lagos. It makes it clear that we're open for business and we tick all the boxes that international investors want. Now, if we want to go into numbers, we can, but perhaps I should let Johnny speak first.
Okay. Well, I have one more question for you before we come to Johnny, which is that, in terms of international investors, they have a choice as to where they deploy their capital. So what is the risk appetite of international investors for Lagos, Nigeria, and has that changed over the last 5-10 years?
What I can tell you, though, is, first of all, I don't like to look at investing from a 5 or 10-year window. I mean, I'm a very long-term investor. But even if you want to look at the investing landscape from a midterm and to 10-year picture, many African investment destinations provide cyclical returns. And it's cyclical because of certain structural problems structural realities within most African economies. One of which is, for instance, the fact that we're very much commodity market determined, in the sense that we have commodities that we produce, but we do not, develop or value add those commodities. So we are very susceptible to commodity super cycles. So if oil prices are up, good. If cocoa prices are up, good. But if cocoa prices are down, it's a problem. But Nestle doesn't care whether cocoa prices are up or down because of what they do with the cocoa and turn it into chocolate. And, chocolate prices don't move with the price of cocoa. So we have to, do a lot of value add, to ensure that we are not susceptible to commodity price distortions. The other thing, of course, is that we spoke about the risk premium. There is for debt, 4 to 10% added premium over US treasuries that African borrowers have to pay. So when interest rates go up, when you complain about that from an international context, the Nigerian or African borrower is paying anything from 4 to 10% on top of that. And then the equity risk premium is also, in certain instances, almost as high as 20%. But the interesting thing is that we still deliver a competitive return in spite of this. So I'm coming somewhere. So, I'll tell you something interesting. When you look at Nigeria between 2015 and 2023, and the headlines were very much about how much of a difficult environment it was. High interest rates, remember, relatively low oil prices, etc., etc. We had to go through global recessions, 2 recessions in Nigeria and so on during that period. Now, a number of investors exited the market. And when you exit, somebody else buys. Let me tell you what is very interesting. Everybody who bought from the exiting investors between 2022 and 2025 have made, in dollar terms, since that exit, at the low side, 50%. At the high side, in dollar terms, 200%. If there is, and you can check it out. I don't just want to mention the names so that the exiting investors don't feel too bad. But, but that is how phenomenal returns in Nigeria have been since 2023.
Yes. Well, we would all settle for between 50 and 200% returns. So yeah, thank you. Johnny, if I can come to you. This year is 10 years since the UK voted for Brexit to leave the EU. I'm from the UK as well, so I remember those times very well. How has the Brexit vote changed the UK's attitude towards trade and investment deals, partnerships with the rest of the world?
Well, I mean, let's start from a Nigeria focus, maybe. I think the UK has always been interested in getting more engaged in vibrant economies like these. And obviously the Brexit has allowed us to shift a level of attention. But to be fair, I mean, on the grounds that Ike has just talked about, Nigeria is always the kind of economy where we would be giving a large amount of attention. I think the other thing to think through, I'm speaking here as a public sector person. Effectively, your question could be seen as a governmental question, but it's also a question about what the private sector does. And the reality is that the things that the British government can do here are always going to be small and always going to be marginal. We want them to be game-changing, but in terms of volumes, the volumes are always going to come from the private sector. So thinking through the things that Samantha was talking about earlier on, one of the jobs of myself and my boss in Abuja is to make sure that British companies do understand how to operate in Nigeria and what the opportunities here are. And we're seeing that tick up dramatically, really, over the last few years. I'm not certain whether I would link it to events in the UK or actually whether I would link it to the policy foundations here, because one of the key elements is having the economic fundamentals right. And we've seen those change. I did want to pick up on one thing that Ike said about secular returns. And I think the interesting question here is whether the Nigerian economy, partly because of the kind of institutions that are going to be developed here, moves away from that cyclical pattern to actually a more predictable pattern, because that then draws in a different sort of investor, which sees a much more certain and a much more stable level of return.
Thank you. And just give, for the audience's benefit, give us a little bit more sort of colour and information about the shape of the relationship between UK and Nigeria as things stand, the economic relationship.
Well, the relationship is a very, very close one. We have deep historical roots between our two countries, which both our countries are proud of. We have seen that relationship formalised in the context of a strategic partnership that was signed between our two governments. But I think most recently, the sort of cherry on the cake, as it were, is the state visit by His Excellency the President to meet the King. And I think what that showed was just the reality of this relationship and how it crosses so many areas. I was lucky enough to go to an event that the King hosted, which was hosting the Nigerian diaspora in Kensington Palace. And the buzz in that room and the readiness of His Majesty the King to engage with people there shows the real depth of a human relationship. But of course, the value of a human relationship is that it then leads to other types of relationships. It leads to trusting economic relationships. And it also, we should never ignore this, is built on a set of institutional relationships. So many of the fundamental Nigerian institutions look very similar to their British counterparts. And we have, over time, for example, supported a relationship between the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Bank of England. We've also supported relationships between the tax authorities in both countries, and that continues across the board. Most recently, I had a visit from the British hydrographer, and of course, he's the person who does all the maps and allows all that shipping to come into Lagos and indeed Nigeria's ports. Nigeria also has a hydrographer. So building those relationships are really fundamental because they're about skills and they're about producing services which the two of us can produce by working together.
And you mentioned the Nigerian diaspora in the UK, which makes a contribution across all areas, the economy, public life, civil society. As an Arsenal supporter, I know they make a huge contribution to Arsenal's team, with two of our star players coming from Nigerian heritage. So that's great, Johnny. Thank you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're probably out of time. Was there anything else either of you wanted to add at this stage before we move to the next panel? Ike, would you like to add anything? Some closing remarks, perhaps.
I was going to say something about Arsenal, but I'll hold that for now. But I will say something about Lagos, because it's a much better team. Nigeria is a great nation, and there is no greater vote when you are deemed to be the face and the gateway to a great nation. Lagos represents the best of Nigeria, the best of Africa, and Lagos is open for business. I believe, as I have hinted, that over the next 5 to 10 years, Lagos and Nigeria represent an exciting, but probably even more importantly, rewarding investment destination. If you want to make good money sustainably over the next 10 years, if Lagos and Nigeria is not in your portfolio, I think you have to make a different portfolio choice. Invest Lagos. We're ready for business. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Those are really strong and powerful words. Johnny, did you want to add in?
Well, I was always also very tempted to say something about Arsenal. And I was wondering whether there were any French Parisians in the room. But yeah, okay, fine. Let's not go down that line. I agree with everything that Ike has said. I think the thing to underline is the importance of institutions. And I think the thing to note is the growth and the strengthening of institutions in Nigeria over time. We heard from NSIA just before. That organization was founded approximately 10, 15 years ago. It's now a fundamental part of the infrastructure here. We are going to see the Lagos International Financial Center founded, growing. All of those institutions matter because they give the fundamental confidence for people from everywhere in the world to come and invest and to take the opportunities that Ike has talked about. I suppose the one final comment to make, and this is speaking as a government person in a sense to other government people, the critical other element of this is the ability to turn that growth into something that matters for the population so that benefit is seen everywhere. It's absolutely right that there is individual growth and there are companies that grow. I think the big challenge, and again we see progress towards this, but obviously we all know there needs to be more, is for that growth to lead to jobs across the whole country, and for that to see the benefits spread everywhere, because ultimately that will deliver more growth over time as well.
Fantastic. We heard yesterday that Lagos is an argument. I think we've just heard two very powerful arguments for Lagos and the investment opportunity. I'd like to thank my panelists, Ige and Johnny, so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zaki Cooper. In the same fashion, I'd like to invite Mr. Governor, Mr. Deputy Governor, and the co-chairs of the LOC to please join for picture. But thank you so much, Zaki, for that conversation. And thank you to our guests, Mr. Johnny Baxter and Mr. Aibuji Aigimokwede. Mr. Johnny Baxter has been very instrumental in driving global partnerships for us, particularly from the United Kingdom, where he represents. Thank you so much for driving that trade partnership between the UK and Nigeria. And of course, Mr. Aibuji Aigimokwede, you can tell he's an ambassador, he's a patriot. That was exceptional. Thank you so much. Interesting conversation, laid the foundation again, even further for the next conversation we are about to have. Mr. Zaki Cooper, you will remain on stage because you're moderating the next panel conversation. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Mr. Johnny Baxter and Mr. Aibuji Aigimokwede. There is a QR code that will be displayed on the screen right now, and it's for those who are interested in the site visitations tomorrow. We have a couple of site visitations. Yes, so please scan for you to register and be a part of the visitation. We will be visiting the Dangote Refinery, the Lekki Free Trade Zone, and a couple of other places. And it'll be very nice if you come along. So please scan the QR code. This is a full site visit form. If you are interested in participating and going alongside other delegates, this QR code will be on the screen for about 10 more seconds before I yield the floor and the stage to our moderator to take the next panel conversation and invite our panelists. The QR code is still on if you're interested. The site visitation happens tomorrow. This is the official QR code to register because you have to register to be a part of it. All right, I will yield the floor now to our moderator who will take the conversation on from here. Over to you, Mr. Zaki Cooper.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We're just going to start the next panel, so if you could kindly take your seats. We're going to talk about global partnerships for growth. I'm going to invite on stage, we have a fabulous panel of 4, and I'm going to invite the panelists on stage, so please welcome them up as I announce them. First up, we have Madame Elsie Atafua from UNDP. She's the resident representative here for UNDP. So if she could come up. And next we have Massimo De Luca, the head of cooperation for the EU delegation to Nigeria. Massimo, welcome. Next we have Donna McGowan, a country director for the British Council, Nigeria. Donna. Here she comes. Okay, hopefully we'll find Donna in a moment. And we have Alexandra Loro from the Agence Française de Développement, Nigeria, AFD. Do we have Alexandra? Great. Great. So here we are. Hopefully we'll locate Donna. If you're in the room, Donna, do come up and join us. A colleague from Microsoft, the Chief AI Officer, apologies, if you could come up and join us. Ola Tomiwa, great to have you with us, Ola Tomiwa Williams. Brilliant. So just to introduce this topic, it's a global partnerships for growth. This is about, strategic engagement between Africonomies and partners. And we've heard about the African Continental Free Trade Area in the conversation between Samantha Cohen and the Secretary General, His Excellency Wamkeli Mene. And really, we want to talk about how Lagos fits into this picture. Lagos is seen as a hub and a gateway into Africa, as we know. But we also want to talk about the fact that these economic relationships are not just about trade alone. They're about infrastructure investment, tech transfer, skills development, sustainable finance, et cetera, And we know that we're in a very complicated world and a complicated investment landscape. So I'm going to ask each of my panelists a couple of questions to really open up the discussion. So first up, Madame Elsie, a warm welcome again. You head up the UNDP's office here. Just explain a little bit more about what the work you do and it does here, please.
Well, good afternoon, Zaki. And first of all, let me thank the government of Lagos for inviting the United Nations Development Program and by extension, the United Nations family to be part of this conversation. And let me say, Excellency Deputy Governor, I also came fully adorned in my Lagos attire. And so my dress is from Lagos, my bag is from Lagos, my accessories are from other parts of Nigeria and Africa. So it's truly Lagos being the business gateway and of course representing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So what does UNDP do? And that's perhaps in the interest of time, as the largest development agency in the United Nations family, ours is to support the government of Nigeria and other countries to move their development agenda forward. In the last few years, we've also seen that partnerships with development agencies like ours have shifted. It's no longer about aid. It's no longer about, projects or small projects. It's really about transformation, structural transformation, building resilience and ensuring that we can advance the development of our great country, Nigeria, forward. There are a couple of things that we are doing, and I think yesterday's conversation is a good segue where our governor said that, states are where development would happen. And so what we are doing is to try to support states through what we call the Integrated Smart States Program to really ground our work. Now, what does it practically mean? The few things that we are doing that I wanted to share tied with the conversation today. One of the streams that we are working on is in the area of trade, investment, and financing. Like we heard earlier, Africa has 1.4 billion people. It is not only the largest legal agreement, but the largest industrial platform in the world. And therefore, we are supporting small and medium-scale enterprises to be able to access the market with skills, capacity, and others. We are ensuring that we can connect states. So if you have leather in Kano, for example, and you have entrepreneurs in Aba, how do you connect them to Lagos, which will be the place where you can brand and you can export? So the AFCFTA remains one of the ones on our heart. We also have an initiative focusing on women called Hair AFCFTA. Women are a core part of the implementation of the agreement, and therefore supporting medium and small-scale enterprise, women enterprises, connecting them with markets and ensuring that they can be able to engage strategically. And recently we had a group of them also in Togo when we had the Biashara Africa. Beyond the area of small and medium-scale enterprises, also in the area of economic diplomacy, it's going to be very important to move beyond the political lens. So we are working also with our foreign ministries to ensure the ambassadors across board understand what we are talking about trade and to ensure that their KPIs also reflect that. And perhaps finally, in the area of trade, investment, and finance, we are also looking at investment at scale. And working with the Nigeria's Governors Forum, we have put together the Nigeria Investopedia. So all the investors here, you're free to go look into that and see how best you can invest in that. On the financing side, Nigeria are borrowing higher than other countries, and therefore ensuring that we can reduce the risk perception and ensuring that Nigeria has what it takes to bring down or to improve their credit rating. I think the Minister of Finance talked about. Two quick things, Zaki, in the interest of time. One is on the energy sector. I mean, energy is such a great integrator of development. We cannot talk about industrialization without talking about the energy factor. Many African countries don't have access to power. And therefore, in Nigeria, with the new Electricity Act that allows states to produce and to disseminate their own power, we are ensuring that we can provide strategic technical support, but also policy support. And a number of the things that you heard yesterday with Governor Oti and others, we have been in the middle of that. A lot of energy audits are being supported by UNDP across board. These energy audits reveal the potential for investment, and therefore the energy sector is one big area that we are looking into. Then thirdly, very quickly, is in the area of innovation, digitalization, and the knowledge economy. His Excellency, the Vice President, always says that Nigeria's greatest asset is not its minerals, but also the knowledge economy. And we believe that talking about Africa continental trade or export is not only about goods, but also services. And we must invest in startups and young people. Here in Nigeria today, with a partnership with the federal government and the private sector, we are ensuring that universities become a platform for innovation. We are setting up what we are calling university ports across 72 universities across, but spaces where young people can go to take their ideas into prototypes. They can take their prototypes into businesses. They can take their businesses into industries. And here in Lagos, we launched the artificial intelligence Uniport not too long ago. His Excellency, the Governor, and the Vice President launched that. And that is very powerful. And therefore, by doing that, we are creating opportunities for startups. A number of them were spoken about yesterday, Flutterwave, Money Point. It must start from somewhere. So the universities, the communities, even the public sector is an area where we are working with the civil service to ensure that the public sector, the civil service will be able to take that conversation forward. And maybe finally, so that I don't monopolize the conversation, it is that we are investing a lot on territorial and regional development. It is not enough to talk about markets in countries. It is not enough to talk about states that are producing. We must connect. And therefore, we have a strong focus now on regional development with the government of Nigeria now decentralizing and empowering more of the states. We are trying to work with the regional economic communities, whether it's the Southeast Development, Southwest, Northeast, and ensuring that we have regional master plans. We have regional initiatives that connect many, many states together. So think about it, Zaki, where if you have cotton produced, for example, in Zamfara and Katsina, you bring it to Kano and Kaduna for processing, and you bring it to Lagos for finishing, branding, and exporting. That becomes a powerful story of connection among the states. So these are some of the things that we are doing, and of course, as the agency that is mandated within the UN system to help accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals, we also work to ensure that we are providing the data that helps to support decision-making across board through our Human Development Report and others. We are helping with financing strategies across board. We are helping with, ensuring that we can support different constituencies move the development agenda forward, and we're very happy to be invited into the conversation today. Thank you.
Great. Madam Elsie, thank you for that very passionate and comprehensive description of all the different work you do, a huge amount. Massimo, moving on to you, tell us a little bit about the relationship between the EU and Nigeria and the EU and Lagos, please.
Okay, it's coming up again. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation, and congratulations to Lagos, the authorities, the private sector for pulling out really such a wonderful event yesterday and today. As a European Union, we've been cooperating and partnering with Nigeria and with Lagos for a few decades, and I think it's been an interesting trajectory, which is taking us now to the point where we are really focusing on what we call the Global Gateway. Global Gateway reflects the willingness of the European Union and Africa counterparts to focus on investments that are transformative for Africa and in Nigeria, and Lagos in particular is at the center of this strategy. I'm glad to be here with my colleague Alexandre from AFD. He will tell you even more about what we are doing in relation to water transportation, what we call the OMIECO project. That's a very good example of what the new strategy is about. It's about transforming passengers, citizens' experience every day with public transport. We heard today that development should be measured by the participation of wealthy people in public transport. And we hope that OMIECO will really contribute to that transformation massively, both facilitating the general public, but really creating viable alternative to those who have to move across the city of Lagos. That project also links to a wider investment blueprint that we are pursuing along what we call the Lagos-Abidjan corridor. So the Lagos-Abidjan corridor is a concept that the region has been pursuing for many years already, I must say. The main feasibility studies have been supported by the European Union, and it comprises really massive infrastructure and associated investment along the axis, I mean the Lagos-Abidjan axis. From, of course, the transport infrastructure, but also all the linkages to productive activities along that corridor. So this is finally really coming to fruition. It's not only OMIECO in Lagos, but a number of other interventions along the corridor that should really reduce those famous 17 hours that we heard of earlier on, mentioned as the time of transport from Lagos to Abidjan, to a much more reasonable amount of time. We also partner on the difficult side of the equation, which is often not so much the infrastructure, but it's really the regulatory alignment through our partnership with ECOWAS. So besides transport, we are working, including in Lagos, on energy, digital, health, and agriculture. You would wonder, but which agriculture? First of all, Lagos is an agricultural state, partly, but where we are really focusing now is on dairy and cocoa. So dairy and cocoa are very complex and very long value chains, but they all end up in Lagos somehow. We are partnering with the EU companies Arla, Danone, and Friesland Campina for the development of the dairy value chain, but precisely to develop the dairy packaging production across the country and in Lagos. And the cocoa, again, we heard a lot already this morning on cocoa, and that's an effort that is also mandated by the deforestation regulation in the European Union. But we believe that it will really transform the industry, an industry which has been for too long fragmented and really riddled with any sort of shortage. And I think that the traceability that is mandated by the deforestation regulation and the input that the industry is putting into that and to the upgrade of the industry, of the sector, will deliver. We will discuss, by the way, all these issues more in depth at the EU-Nigeria Business Forum, which will also take in place in Lagos on the 25th of June.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Moving on to Alexandre from AFD. For those of you in the room who don't know, it's the French public bank for development owned by the French government. Alexandre, could you tell us, please, about the relationship between AFD and Lagos, Nigeria too?
Thank you, Zeki. First and foremost, I'm really, really sorry. I'm really sorry because in the room you might find the only French and Parisian in the room. As per the joke, you can understand I'm not a diplomat, but still I will have the privilege to speak on the behalf of a really good friend of Nigeria, which is France, obviously. Good friends which has dedicated a toolbox for the sustainable development of Lagos State. And it's been the case since 10 years now. It's a toolbox where you have financing, mostly concessional loans, expertise from French companies, French public bodies, technical assistance, but from EU sources as well as the capacity of mobilizing, coalition of willingness, etc., in order to build and make audacious projects possible. Everything is based on the mutual benefits we have identified together and the strategic policies dictated by Lagos State is the case, notably the T of the Thames policy framework. So I'm here to discuss how it's possible for a global partner such as France to basically support Lagos State to implement its strategy. It's in action, what does it mean? Let's say three elements to keep in mind. Let's start with the figures, because I'm not a diplomat, but I'm a development banker. Through the recipes I'll give you after, AFD and France has been able to commit to Lagos State 500 million euros for the transport sector in Nigeria, and especially in Lagos State. And I'm really proud of it. Part of the project we want to showcase is really the first BRT in Nigeria, here in Lagos, already implemented. Many strategic studies interchange with Lamata when it comes to land transportation. And obviously the well-known Omieko mentioned by my friend Massimo here. It's definitely a flagship, ticking all the boxes from socio-economical to climate sustainability boxes. It's really a one-of-a-kind project. We actually don't have another one in the world. And the good thing is, thanks to this willingness, the sheer willingness we have and the recipe coming, we are actually in the implementation of such projects. Meaning, we got, which are for me the four pillars for such the capacity of Lagos State to actually attract foreign money, foreign investment into Lagos State. And the first one is a clear political vision and policies. The second one for me is actually the actual capacity to deliver and implement, and we are a witness of it. And the last one is the consistency and the sustainability, both from a climate and an economical perspective, to have it in your core. And the last one is the only one which has not been mentioned, maybe, is really the ability to have a frank dialogue between people. So, Mr. Governor, Mr. Deputy Governor, it's between my team and your teams, actually, that I would like to praise. So, I would like to praise Lagos State for his vision and declination in terms of politics, but also the team that you oversee, obviously. So, yeah, to me, that basically, in a nutshell, what a development bank from a friend country can do for the development of Lagos State.
Okay, thank you. That's really, really helpful, illuminating, and impressive what you've described. So now, Ola Tomiwa Williams, she's the Chief Growth and AI Officer for MEA, Middle East Africa, for Microsoft. So your company is ubiquitous. I dare say there's probably no one in the room who doesn't use a Microsoft product in some way, shape or form. So how does Lagos, Nigeria fit into your work at Microsoft?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Not just because I work for Microsoft, but the opportunity and the platform that Lagos State has provided over the years. First, I would like to say that Lagos State has been very deliberate around this program. Doing this for 3 consecutive years, it's the level of deliberateness that we've seen as Microsoft and other organizations like us to see the potential to partner. But I'm not only excited about the consistency of doing this for 3 years, but the ingenuity of thinking of invest in Lagos within the context of Africa continental free trade area. So Lagos is not looking at prosperity in isolation, but prosperity across Africa, and how can we come together as a continent to make things work for us. So if I look at this, what you have said in terms of how Microsoft and other global organizations is looking at, prosperity of Africa, I think, in my own opinion, we've spoken about potential for a very long time. Now, Africa have come to a position of capabilities. And I believe that the AFCFTA provides that platform for us. So we're not looking at 52 or 54 isolated markets. Investors are now saying one platform, one market that they can scale easily. But of course, market alone does not provide prosperity. We need to ensure that we have strong skill, we have strong infrastructure, and there is a strong also policies and programs to ensure that investors thrive. Because when we look at what investors do want, sometimes we believe investors are risk averse. I think differently. I think investors know how to manage risk. But what they are also looking for is certainty. They want to ensure that if I invest 10 years, 20 years down the line, there is certainty. So, and Lagos is actually providing that platform. For me, Microsoft has been here for 26 years plus, and we are lucky to have both governor and deputy governor that are super interested and invested in development of Lagos, and also very, very intentional around how they rally the technology ecosystem to expand, our capabilities for our people. For example, when we moved into our new office about 3 years ago, the governor was there to do the opening, right? And I've been privileged to sit in a room with the deputy governor in Dubai in our office, where we look at technology and how technology can enable Lagos. For a very busy personality like him, to sit into a room for hours on end, listening to how can we shape Lagos with technology. That is a huge platform, it's a huge opportunity, and we need to really celebrate that. And, you know, we've spoken so well, and a lot of panelists have discussed how, you know, great the potential of Lagos is. And we can say that over and over again. However, I also want us to think differently. How can we unleash this potential? Let's think about the fact that today AI is transforming every industry. And how can Lagos take advantage of that in the event of partnership with the AFCFTA to ensure that we're not just consumers of technology? Africa can actually be innovators' engine for the world. And I think we have what it takes. Let's look at Lagos. You know, Lagos provides platform for entrepreneurs to thrive. We have a thriving technology hubs and ecosystem. We have the youth population across Africa. We have the stable financial institution in Nigeria. How can we put all of this together to ensure that Lagos is not just a city? Lagos becomes a platform on which Africa can actually, you know, skyrocket its innovation. That is the way I think about Lagos, and that is what I think Lagos should become. I'm thinking of Lagos as the operating system for Africa, where ideas are not just born. Ideas are born, talents are able to thrive, and investors find opportunities for their money in a sustainable manner. So this kind of conversation that we're having today provides us that opportunity. But now we need to take it a level further. There is a committee that arranged this, you know, this investment session. That committee should actually take up the opportunity to say, let's wait a bit. How can we take Lagos to be the technology hub for Africa, churning out a lot of, you know, innovative products? I would like to see Lagos State actually creating an AI corridor, bringing together academia, you know, private sector, governments, multinational organizations like Microsoft and the rest of us, and diplomats, as we see on the table today, to sit on a round table, not just only to talk, but to create things that people can feel. Because when we talk about diplomacy or signing of MOU or, you know, having conversations like this, people don't really celebrate them as such. What people celebrate is the amount of, you know, jobs that we create, the amount of life that is transformed, and the amount of economic growth that such opportunity gives to us. So it's really important that we really build on this platform that Lagos State had graciously provided. If Singapore can be the hub for Asia and California is transformed because of Silicon Valley, of course Africa can be transformed because Lagos choose to lead, and I believe we can. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Olatamuwa, very, very upbeat and visionary words. I love your idea of Lagos as the operating system for Africa. We're actually running slightly behind time, so I'm going to ask one last question to all the panel and ask you to be quite brief in your remarks. And I will reserve the right to intervene if it goes over about a minute. That's okay, because I think we need to move on in the schedule. And my question is as follows, and some of you already touched on it in your remarks, but you know, we're now in 2026, think ahead to 2050, 2060. What defines a successful long-term economic partnership with Lagos? So, Elsie, Madam Elsie, would you like to go first?
Well, I think the long-term partnership with Lagos means how Lagos is able to connect with the rest of the continent. I think we talk about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area only from a market access point of view, but on trade point of view, but also from a production point of view. It's going to be very important. And I think so think about it. Look at the automobile industry, for example. I mean, yesterday, I think the governors were talking about lithium and other things that are here. but we are not producing, we are net importer of vehicles. So think about Lagos. If, for example, working together, success means building together, success means leveraging together, and I think that is what Lagos brings to the table. And then perhaps one final thing in the area of technology becomes important. Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Massimo, if we can move to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there are two dimensions that I would like to single out. First of all, the economic participation, meaning that we are at 2026. We are about to release a survey on EU companies in Nigeria. Most of them, 95%, are based in Lagos. I think these are important indicators. I mean, I think that there is a huge space for many more European companies to be established in Nigeria and mostly in Lagos. And this is certainly something we would look at as a success story. I mean, to double, to triple the amount of companies, EU companies based here, and all the various partnership arrangements that can be established between skills and the human development dimension. We work very hard on that. Yesterday we were in Continental Hotel with the Deputy Governor. It's not only TVET. We work very closely with Elsie on the Jubilee Fellowship. We are working towards a migration agreement with Nigeria. And we work massively on digital skills with Minister Tijani, skills for health.
Thank you. Massimo, sorry, if I could just ask you to finish up. Great, thank you. Alexandra?
Alexandre, really short. For me, on our side, for an organization which implements infrastructure projects, everything is about human connections that enable a shared and a common understanding. That the sine qua non condition to build a common architecture.
Great, okay, thank you. And Ola Tomiwa.
Thank you. For me, I see 10 years where this partnership that Lagos State is leading across Africa, that we will look back as a people and say that we've been able to build something tangible, touchable, that we would not have been able to do individually on our own. Thank you.
Well, look, thank you for being so brief. I mean, just to wrap, I think we've had a treat, ladies and gentlemen. We've had 4 key players in the ecosystem here talking about global partnership for growth, from the UNDP, the EU, the AFD, and Microsoft, 4 absolutely indispensable players. And we all know we live in a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's quite a well-known acronym, but I think together, through the good work of all these organizations and companies and others in the room, we can sort of navigate this complex world together to form PPPs, public-private partnerships, to sort of grow the Lagos economy. So with thanks to all my panelists again, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you to Zaki Cooper for not 1 but 2 great panels there. Give him a round of applause. I think we're taking a photo, the obligatory photo. I'm going to ask the Deputy Governor, please, to stand up one more time, and the co-chairs, of course. Come and join us. Ike, please, you have to join us. You've done a lot of hard work for this, to make this happen. As they're taking the photo, I'll tell you that you really should stick around, because we're going into the creatives and cultural and tourism segment yet. But before I do that, let me just recognize the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction for the Federal Government of Nigeria. Please give a warm round of applause. He's here right now. Dr. Bernard Dora is with us. I should also say that the deal rooms are hot. They are hot. They are very hot. And you should check